Hi, so as some of you might know, we recently refaced our kitchen cabinets. If you haven't seen that, you can click right here for a video to that process. We took the inner panel out of the cabinet doors and put a different one in, making it a little bit heavier, and taken a cross piece out to give it a more open look. So now that those are done, it's time to finish them. And what we are going to do is use chalk paint. Yes, you can go buy chalk paint for about $35 a quart, get the wax, the whole 9 yards, but you can make your own chalk paint for a fraction of the price. All you need is some plaster of Paris, paint of your choice, and some regular old tap water. Let me show you how we made our chalk paint. So the trick to chalk paint is a 1-to-3 ratio. So you need 1 part chalk paint, 3 parts paint. So what I'm going to use to mix it in is a mason jar, and this is handy because there's no sharp corners in the bottom, so you can get all of the plaster of Paris mixed up very well. So I'm going to put in half a cup of plaster of Paris and then 1, 2, 3 half cups of paint. So we're going to have 2 total cups. And you'll be amazed at how far this 2 cups of paint will go. You can probably get away with just buying a quart of paint and it will cover an incredible amount of surface area. So let's get mixing this thing. So half a cup of plaster of Paris. So now we need to mix up this plaster of Paris, and you only need a little bit of water. You'll be surprised, it's probably a couple tablespoons, maybe. So you want to make sure you mix up your plaster of Paris very well before you add any paint, otherwise you'll never get the chunks of plaster out. So this is what you're after, something like this. I'd say it's about the consistency of sour cream. Yeah, that sounds about right. Now you want to make sure you don't stir this for too long. Get the paint in there because it will begin to harden. Now that we've got our plaster mixed up, we're going to mix in 1.5 cups of paint. Now if you're really brave, you can pour right into your vessel that you're mixing in, but I'm going to do it with a cup. Probably a little more accurate as well. So that's what we've done in the past, that's what we're going to do today. And once you got your proper paint ratio, mix and shake to your heart's content. Don't drop it. Another nice feature about a clear container, doesn't necessarily have to be glass, is that you can see the bottom of your container and you can tell when you've got all of the plaster of Paris mixed in. Let's take a look inside. So, there we have it, chalk paint. Let's put some of this on. So once you have your chalk paint mixed up and shaken up very well, you're ready to paint. Now I want to show you a couple techniques that I found work best with this. And first of all I painted all the upstairs dipping into the can, and I found that it saved me a ton of time to pour a little bit of chalk paint into this is just a paper bowl. And that saves me the time of having to accurately dip into the mason jar and trying not to get my paintbrush covered in paint. It also ended up being much cleaner. So what I found works best with this type of brush, we're using a chip brush because we want heavy brush strokes with the grain of the wood. So I found the best thing with this, since it doesn't hold much paint, is when I take a dip of paint, I like to spread out about 3 swatches and then smooth in between them. And you'll be surprised how far the chalk paint goes. You don't need very much on there. So just rub it in, long brush strokes, and that'll give the heavy brush stroke that we're looking for. A note about chalk paint before you start handling your cabinet doors is chalk paint scrapes off very easily as it's very porous. So you need to seal it. But a word of warning, as you're moving around your cabinets, be very careful, because if you scrape it with your fingernail, you will peel the paint off. So I've laid some drop cloths down underneath my stuff, helps keep the floor clean as well, but also to protect the cabinet. So once you got your chalk paint on and it's dry, it's time to seal that porous material. Now, if you buy the Annie Sloan chalk paint, for example, you'll get a wax to seal that. And based on experience from a fellow YouTube creator, we're going to bypass the wax and we're actually going to use a deck sealer, which is kind of ironic, but in my mind, that should be very, very strong. It's supposed to be a deck. It should be very durable. We obviously have lots of kids running around, banging on the cabinets. The frames upstairs have held up very well for the couple weeks that we've had it in, so far so good. Now what I'm going to use is a Sherwin-Williams Super Deck. It's a newly formed paint. It just replaced Deckscapes. So Super Decks is what we're going to use. It's a clear sealer, water-based. Now it goes on cream, which will freak you out when you first put it on, but it dries crystal clear. So I'm using a pretty nice brush for me. It was probably a $10 brush at Lowe's. And just nice and smooth. The stuff goes on very watery, and then it kind of gums up if you don't get done with your section quickly. And I like to kind of drip it on and then brush it in. Well, I hope this provides a great example for how you guys can save a nice chunk of change when you want to paint anything with chalk paint. Whether it be kitchen cabinets or a table frame, a metal table frame, chalk paint goes on anything, and it's very, very durable. As you guys know, we have 2 kids and a new cat that's around here somewhere that are running throughout this kitchen constantly. And after about 3 weeks, as far as I can tell, we don't have a scratch or dent in these kitchen cabinets yet. So I'm pretty sure we can safely say it's a very durable solution. So if you guys have any comments or questions about the chalk paint or about the kitchen refinish, please leave them in the comments down below. I love to see what you guys have to say. I'm DIY Tyler. You guys have a good one.